Here's Brody Brazil.
You know, for the latter portions of the 2010s decade, the narrative surrounding Mike Trout was that he was probably baseball's best player, but he certainly did not present himself that way. Like in terms of popularity and image and branding, football players have a big platform, so do basketball players. But Mike Trout necessarily did not command that same spotlight, despite the fact that he was arguably one of baseball's best. However, the narrative and the storyline surrounding Mike Trout these days is unfortunately quite different here about halfway through the 2020s decade. Mike Trout is now done for this 2024 season, and a lot of people are wondering and questioning, can he ever come back on a consistent basis and beat these injuries? Can he ever be the same to how he was for a majority of the 2010s? Mike Trout is dealing with that left knee and left meniscus injury all over again. He's now going through the literal same injury that he had earlier this season. Let's recap 2024 for Mike Trout. He started off by being regular and consistent and an everyday player in the Halos lineup. He played every one of the Angels' first 29 games this season, and kind of an interesting start in terms of his offense. He was only batting .220. That's well below his career average, but hitting .220 to go along with 10 dingers in just the first 29 games. You extrapolate that, you figure out what that pace was. Yeah, it would have been pretty ridiculous to see him continue on that home run tear. So he was hitting the long ball, not hitting for average, but then on April 29th, in game 29 of the season, he leaves with a knee injury. He finds out a couple days later, it's the torn left meniscus. It needs surgery. So in early May, he starts the process of recovery. He gets that surgery. And that brings us all the way to the 23rd of July, so not long ago, a week and a half ago or so. He's up in Salt Lake City with the AAA affiliate of the Angels. It's the Salt Lake Bees. And he's doing his first rehab assignment, literally his very first minor league game since the injury back in the springtime. One plate appearance in the game. He played 2 innings out there in center field at Smith's Ballpark, and he had to come out of the game. It was the left knee and the injury. Again, it was left knee discomfort. He flies immediately back to Los Angeles the next day. He finds out it's another torn meniscus. He needs surgery all over again. This was announced, by the way, on the 1st of August. This was a statement by Mike Trout. You rarely see players for an injury like this come out with a statement, but it's so many injuries. And now the same injury twice in the same year, felt like he needed to say something here. Since my initial surgery on May 3rd to repair my meniscus, my rehabilitation proved longer and more difficult than anticipated. After months of hard work, I was devastated yesterday when an MRI showed a tear in my meniscus that will require surgery again, ending my hopes of returning this season. Playing and competing is a huge part of my life. This is equally heartbreaking and frustrating for me as it is for you, the fans. I understand that I may have disappointed many, but believe me, I will do everything I can to come back even stronger. I will continue to help my team and teammates from the dugout as we press forward into the second half of this season. Thank you for your support. Signed, Mike Trout. So, classy, well done. That's the best he can do given the circumstances. But look at Paul Hembo here on Twitter, pointing out the various injuries to Trout across the last basically 6-7+ years now. 2017, the torn ligament in his left thumb. 2018, inflammation of the right wrist, which kept him out. 2019, surgery on his right foot. 2021, the strained right calf. 2022, the left rib cage inflammation. 23, fractured the hamate bone in his left hand. That's from the bat. The knob of the bat does that to you. And then in this season, 2024, a pair of torn left meniscus injuries. I mean, that's literally something every year. 2020 was the shortened season. There were only 60 regular season games. We'll count that one out. But every other year, he's had a major injury. He's missed a lot of games, especially down the stretch. I'll get to that in a second. It makes you look at this and wonder and say, is there a common thread here? What, is anybody this unlucky? Is it simply bad luck? Is he injury prone? Is there something we don't know? Is there a missing step or a missing piece of the equation? Is there something not happening that should be happening that's causing these injuries? But they're not the same injuries over and over, well, with the exception of this left meniscus. foot, calf, wrist, thumb, rib cage, hamate bone. These are all different things. It's kind of common baseball injuries, to be honest with you, the things we're seeing here. It's not like these are unexpected or far out of possibility or reality, but it's just the frequency of a major injury literally every season for Mike Trout. Bill Shaken of the LA Times points out here, games played by Mike Trout in the second halves of seasons. 2021 didn't play in the second half. 2022 played 40 games. Last year, 1 game. This year, not going to play a single game. He officially came back and played the minor league rehab game, 2 innings, 1 at-bat. But he will never have come back this season since departing the Angels back on the 29th of April. So that's frustrating. And when we talk about second halves, I mean, you got to talk about the playoffs in the very same breath. This continues a trend that even when Trout was healthy for most of the 2010s, he and Ohtani on that same Angels team, they couldn't get to the playoffs very often. Even before Ohtani, Mike Trout has only been in 1 playoff series in his career. The Angels got swept in 2014 by the Royals, who ended up sweeping every single game of the playoffs until they got to the Giants in the World Series. They lost that World Series famously to San Francisco. But Mike Trout only played in 3 of the 4 playoff games where the Angels got swept in that ALDS. He went 1 for 12 at the plate. He's got 1 playoff hit in 3 playoff games in all these career seasons. That's an .083 average. His dinger was against Kansas City, obviously. The Angels have had 3 seasons with a winning record since 2012, which was Mike Trout's rookie season. He played a little bit in 11, but he won Rookie of the Year. He was eligible for that in 2012. And one of those seasons was obviously when they made the playoffs in 2014. Trout and Ohtani together on the same team, they both were Rookie of the Year in the American League. They won that respective award, different seasons. 5 MVPs of the American League total, but together, they never produced a winning record. And I'm here to say that's not a slight on Ohtani and or Trout. It's just to point out that this team had the superstars. They never surrounded the superstars. This was built improperly. This is like buying 2 Ferraris, putting them in your garage of your house, which has a crumbling foundation. And the framing of the house was done improperly. And the house is falling down. That's great. You got 2 Ferraris there, but your house is not standing and is not going to stand for much longer. So Mike Trout can't play in the second halves, can't be on a good team, can't ever really get back to the playoffs. And so these are my takeaways. I mean, this is also an interesting consideration. Mike Trout is about to be only halfway through his current 12-year contract that he signed with the Angels. He's making $37.1 million every year. Look, I'm not here to go one way or another on that. That's the deal he signed. That's what Los Angeles expected from him. At the time, it seemed like he was going to produce up to that value. Again, arguably the best player in Major League Baseball for a lot of the 2010s. But he's still under contract now through the 2030 season. The second half, these final 6 years after this one, is going to take him through 2030. He'll be age 38 through 2030. And meantime, the Angels are stuck in the mud. They don't look to be getting significantly better year after year. They've tried. They've backed out. They've pulled back in. They've tried a different angle. They just cannot fit themselves in a playoff race. And so it's possible that the Halos could rebuild and they could be a playoff team by 2030. But how about the health of Mike Trout? I guess that's my question here for Mike Trout. How does this end? Does he play out the rest of the contract? Will he be healthy enough to participate next year, the year after? I know what the Angels said. I know what their front office said. I know what their GM said. I know what Mike Trout wants. We've got to be realistic here, and I hope the best for him. This is not wishful thinking that I hope he can't come back. I certainly do. He is a talent of baseball that when he's on point, he can't be missed. Baseball needs, obviously, more Mike Trouts, but he may never come back and be the same again. And that's just human nature. That's the way this works. The other part of this is, as of this moment, is Mike Trout a Hall of Famer? A regular season Hall of Famer with a lot of stats and a lot of accolades and a lot of, compliments given to him, but can you get into Cooperstown having played 3 total playoff games, winning none of them and only having one playoff hit. And I don't know how many more years his career is going to go. So I don't know the answer. I'm asking wide open, how does this end for Mike Trout? I hope better than worse, but at this point, nothing is obvious to me. Trout's done for the season. I'm not here to say that he's done for his career. He's going to come back. He's going to figure that part out. But what's next? What's around the corner? How can he distance himself from all those injuries that he's gone through? It's kind of actually unbelievable. Like I said, if luck is involved here, if that's the main culprit, then luck has been terrible to Mike Trout. But I suspect it's a combination of a lot of things that I can't even really explain. You've made it here to the end of this video. You know I really appreciate that. Thumbs up down below. That'll greatly help me, this video, this channel. I would like that. I would also love it if you go down there right now, hit that subscribe button. If you're new to this channel, if you just found me, that's great. But I want to make sure I can definitely see you back here next time.